Have you ever been watching an episode of Star Trek and thought to yourself, wait a second, haven't I seen this before? Well, the answer is probably. From series to series, we get episode do-overs that are a chance to retell and hopefully upgrade a previous story idea. But does the new episode always get it right? That's exactly what we're going to talk about in this live stream series called Double Take. Now let's start the show. Hello and welcome to the Savage Stream, the weekly live stream where we talk all things Star Trek. And today we are continuing our series of Double Take with a look at an episode from Star Trek Voyager versus, from Star Trek The Next Generation versus Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is going to be a really fun conversation. If you're joining me live, hello and welcome. There are 5 memberships available in the chat thanks to PS2 Chipper. So if you're here live, make sure you grab those while they're available. You may need to enable it or something on your side. If you're joining on the replay, hello and welcome. There will be timestamps below so that you can skip ahead at any time. But without further ado, let's start with the first episode of our Double Take. Season 6, Episode 14, Face of the Enemy. Troi wakes up on a Romulan warbird, surgically altered to resemble a Romulan operative as part of a covert Federation operation. She must help a Romulan defector escape with vital intelligence while maintaining her cover under the suspicious eye of her commanding officer. So, okay, there's so much more to say about that episode, obviously. So this is the first episode we're going to talk about, which is Face of the Enemy. And this was kind of a linchpin moment, in my opinion, for the character of Counselor Troi. This is a real turning point. And it's because we see her as something more than whatever she was supposed to be in seasons 1 and 2, where she was just kind of like crying all the time and feeling gratitude and joy and thirsting after Riker and having random skills like hypnotism or being a linguist, and it just was not very clear what they wanted to do with this character exactly, other than have her be really hot and show a lot of cleavage on the bridge. Like, other than that, we weren't quite sure what she was here to do. But in this episode, which is season 6, so it did take a hot minute, but in this episode, we get to see her doing something so amazing. She has to pretend to be a Tal Shiar agent, which are like the scariest, top secret agents of the Romulan Empire or whatever. And so she had to be really forceful and aggressive and actually rude. She had to be kind of sneaky and conniving and all of these words we would never associate with Counselor Troi. And for me, that really elevated her as a character, because it was like, are you fast enough on your feet to fall into this role and completely own it and make sure that the mission is successful? Which is amazing, because if I was in her shoes, the answer would be probably not, right? This actually kind of reminds me of, what is that episode with Q? I think it's called, Cupid, which is a silly episode that I absolutely love, where they go back to Sherwood Forest and it's just like nonsense. Q zaps them back in time or whatever. And Vosh is there. And the whole reason Q does it is because he wants Captain Picard to admit that he has a thing for Vosh before he goes and steals Vosh. And what I loved about her in that episode, what I loved about Vosh, is the fact that she's such a good con artist that when she finds herself in Sherwood Forest playing Maid Marian, she just rolls with the punches. She's like, yep, I'm Maid Marian. Let's keep it rolling. Like nothing happened. And I thought that skill was from years of just conning people, right? Which I still think is where that skill came from. But where does Counselor Troi get these skills? I don't know. I don't know where, but I'm so here for it. I'm glad that she gets these skills, because it's amazing to see her play this game of cat and mouse in this episode with this, what do you call the people who are in charge of Romulan ships? They're not captains, they're whatever the title is, commanders maybe. But playing this cat and mouse game with the Romulan captain and trying to kind of give new orders and change course and do all these things to maneuver this Romulan defector into position so that the defector can be transported. And the defector's like in stasis in some kind of like coffins in the cargo bay or whatever. So they're trying to maneuver the ship. Troi has been kidnapped, so she can maneuver the ship into place so that the defector and his 2 aides can be beamed onto this freighter, right? And then the freighter is supposed to take the cargo to Federation space. And this is all a big plot that Spock is doing in his efforts to reunify Vulcan and Romulus, I guess. Part of that reunification is that there's this whole underground movement who does not love how the Romulans are so Romulan. And so Spock is kind of working with the underground to try to undermine the current government regime and bring change or something. This is what we find out from a Federation defector who defected to the Romulans, which is wild. And he's like the least convincing defector you've ever seen in your life. Like, if I saw him, I'd be like, you're a spy. But he wasn't a spy. He legitimately defected. But Spock asked him to take on this mission through a proxy. So Spock asked someone to ask this other Federation defector a favor to kind of coordinate this with the Enterprise. So this person, whose name I don't even remember, I'm sure they said it, but this Federation defector comes onto the Enterprise and then says, you need to go meet at this certain place. You're going to meet with this freighter. You're going to get this cargo. That's all I know. So, that's the deal. And Riker's just like, you're a traitor. I don't really want to hear anything you have to say. And so he gets arrested. And in Enterprise terms of arrested, he gets house arrest, basically. He's confined to quarters. That's his arrested for being a traitor. So not bad, honestly, for being a traitor, because they deal with that a lot more harshly in today's climate. But anyways, he was under house arrest. Picard eventually talked to him and was like, okay, so you trust this third-party person, really came from Spock, and there's really some mission. Somehow he convinces Picard of this some way. And so they go to meet the freighter. And when they get there, the freighter's not there. So they're like, okay, should we have really listened to this dude? Is any of this real? And then the defector's all like, no, trust me. Spock's got a plan. It's just because the freighter's slow. It's probably like making its way. So they start kind of scanning for it. And they end up finding this debris field where the freighter used to be, but is now in teeny tiny pieces. And so they're like, okay, well, this, Data's like the specs match whatever the freighter is we were looking for. Also, there's like Romulan disruptor fire in space. Somehow we can detect that was there. So now Picard's like, all right, this is actually like, I believe this dude now. This is all making sense. And even Riker comes around and is like, all right, fine. So what should we do now? Based on our readings, we think the Romulans are still in the area. So let's keep our shields up and just kind of scan and see what we can see. Why would they, shoot this freighter, whatever. In the meantime, back on the Romulan ship, Troi has woken up as a Romulan, doesn't know what's going on, but this, like, her partner in crime, which is maybe the first officer on that ship. I think his name is like Navek or something like that. Anyways, he's in on the whole plot. He's part of the underground. He's friends with Spock or something. He knows about this whole plot. He's the one who deflected, which means murdered, the real Tal Shiar agent somehow. Like, how did he even do that? This thing goes far and wide, right? But anyways, he deflected the original agent in order to place Troi here, because they knew if they got into any sticky situations, they would need a Federation officer to smooth it over, to maybe use their special command codes or have some tricks up their sleeve that are real, that a Romulan agent would not have. So they were like, we're really sorry to kidnap you, but we sort of had to kidnap you. So play along or we'll both die. So Troy's totally blackmailed into going along with this whole thing. So she's like, all right, being space sounds kind of sucky. So I'm just going to pretend to be this agent. And I also wonder, how much does she know about the Tal Shiar? Like, how much does she know about their affect or their presence or because they're supposed to be like this shadowy government organization. I don't know. But Nechek, remind me in the comments or the chat, whatever his name is, he kind of gives her a few pointers from time to time when they steal minutes alone of like, you need to be more forceful, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. So anyway, she's playing this role. So what happened was, she was able to tell the Romulan ship to change course to go meet with the freighter. So she did that. And at first the Romulan captain was all like, what are you even talking about? And then she was like, I'm Tal Shiar, follow my orders. And so the captain was like, fine, I don't like Tal Shiar, but I'll have to listen. So they reroute. While they're talking to the freighter captain on the view screen or something, Troi, with her empathic abilities that totally come in handy this time, realizes that the captain of the freighter is not telling the truth. The captain of the freighter has no intention of actually delivering the Romulan defector and aides, so the 3 people, has no intention of delivering these 3 people to Federation space, like none. So she's like, oh shoot, we can't transport the cargo because this mission is not going to be successful. So she tells the first in command, or the first officer, like, hey, this dude's not telling the truth. And the first officer's like, got it. Boom, blows up the ship, blows up the freighter. And she's like, what the heck? And the captain of the Romulan ship is like, what the heck? And then the guy turns and is like, oh, the Tal Shiar agent, Major, whatever her name is supposed to be, whatever Troy's name is supposed to be. The Major told me to do it. She told me to fire, so I had to follow her orders. So now the captain is pissed, right? Like, how dare you do that? You fired on a freighter, da, da, da. And now Troi is in between a rock and a hard place because she would have never ordered that, but she's supposed to be the Tal Shiar and she has to back his plan for the mission and also so she doesn't get spaced. So of course she's like, I'll do what I want and da 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 da. And how dare you question my orders and blah 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 blah. And so she pulls rank and everything, and she orders the ship to go to the nearest Federation starbase or something like that. And of course the captain's like, no, we're done taking your orders. And she's like, oh yeah, you better remove this captain from the bridge, or everybody who can hear my voice plus all of your families are going to suffer at the hands of the Tal Shiar. Like, she just lays it on thick. And so everybody's terrified to disobey Major Troi. And then the first officer is just like, I will obey your orders, right? Because he's like playing along to like, make sure that she stays in charge. So they decide to go to the Federation outpost, but before they can get there, the Enterprise shows up. So then they're like, okay, we need another plan. And Troi manages to, like comms over to the Enterprise. They decloak, they comm over, and then Riker and Picard et al., everybody on the bridge of the Enterprise is like, oh my gosh, that's Counselor Troi. But somehow, being the professionals they are, they do not react to this shocking development. Like, I would have been like, Troi, is that you? I would have totally blown her cover. But they were all just like, like they had no big reactions, which was exactly what they needed in this situation. And she kind of does that thing that the bridge officers can do where they communicate without directly communicating, but they understand what they're saying. And they play along and they pretend to fire on the Enterprise, but really they were hiding the fact that they beamed over the 3 defectors at the same time that they were firing upon the ship. And they fired at the Enterprise in a way that doesn't actually hurt the Enterprise. So these 3 show up on the bridge, and then that Federation defector is like, aha, see, I told you, proof. And now they've got the cargo, but what they don't have is Troi. And also the first officer who's been helping Troi. Well, at this point, when the Enterprise takes no damage from being shot, the Romulan captain is like, hold up a second, let me do some investigations, and start looking at the panels and is like, this was sabotaged from the beginning. You guys were all in this together. And she gets super suspicious and she pulls, I think the first officer maybe pulls a weapon, or I don't remember why this happens, but another person on the bridge shoots him as a traitor, or because the captain said so, or maybe he was making a move for the weapon. I don't even remember the context, but I remember he gets shot and he gets killed. And Troi is like, oh crap. Like, that was her supporter and now she's in big trouble. But before the captain can shoot her, the Enterprise beams Troi off because their shields were down. Of course they were. Their shields were down to beam the defectors, I guess. So Troi gets beamed over to the Enterprise and she's like, go, 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 go. And Picard's like, get us out of here, warp 8. So they warp away as fast as they can before the Romulan ship can say 2 words or chase them or anything. Plus they're not in Romulan space. I think they're like near the neutral zone or something. So like the Romulans are going to chase them into Federation space and vice versa. So they go home, all is well. The defectors have made it. And I don't know who's talking to her at the end, maybe Beverly Crusher or something. Maybe it's Picard, but someone's talking to Troi about everything that happened. And she's like, the real hero was the first officer because he died to make sure that this mission was successful. He died and he also killed a few people, right? He killed that whole freighter full of people. He killed this Tal Shiar agent and who knows how many other people. And he told her, because she, at one point on the ship, she yelled at him like, why did you fire? And he was just like, look, a whole bunch of people have died for this. This is about more than just these people. This is about our whole entire empire, our way of life, and yada, yada. So in the end, even though he did stuff that she did not agree with, she still considered him to be a hero. She was back. She was safe. She had her face back. And I feel like it was either this point or it was that episode where Picard was stuck in the turbo lift and she had to take over as captain. It might have been that episode, which maybe was also season 6. I don't totally remember. But it's kind of around here where she starts getting more meaty things to do in the show. And not so much just like popping bubblegum and twirling her hair, right? She gets like real things to do. And this episode is so good. It's one of my favorite Troi episodes of all time, which is not hard because a lot of the Troi episodes is mostly just her being like sexually assaulted. This one, she is physically assaulted because her whole body is changed without her permission, but and probably psychologically scarred a bit. But compared to all the other crazy stuff that happens to this character, this is mild. This is mild compared to everything that goes on with her. And it's definitely one of my favorite episodes and just such a cool such a cool moment to see Troi being so commanding and in charge and keeping a cool head in this objectively terrifying situation. Okay, that was season 5, disaster. Okay. So it was last season. So it wasn't until season 5 that she started getting meaty things to do. So it was 4 full seasons of some nonsense. And then seasons 5, 6, and 7, she actually got to do some cool stuff. So yeah, this is one of my favorite Troi episodes. I want to pivot now to talking about the episode that was a double take of this exact episode in Deep Space Nine. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and check the chat, see what you have to say, and then we'll talk about the next episode and we will compare and contrast. While I'm doing that, did you like this episode? Do you remember when you saw this episode? Like, and what were your feelings? All I remember from this episode is the moment of her being shocked in the mirror. Like, that's my biggest memory of when I saw this episode as a kid. But I didn't remember anything else. Like, what happened? Like, why was she like that? So in rewatching it for the TNG podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this. I forgot about that. Like, so many things. And I was like, whoa, this episode's legit good, which I didn't remember. I just remember seeing her as a Romulan. So yes, I love this. I love seeing the colon in the chat. Hello, hello. If there's any more memberships left, be sure to grab them while they're hot. Oh, I love this. Monday was Canadian Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy belated. And I was channeling Troi. Lots of joy and gratitude. I love this barrel colon. Yes, the Tal Shiar is like Section 31, but with less buffoonery than we saw in the movie. Although, in watching Deep Space Nine, Section 31 was so cool. It just makes me more like hungrier than ever for a legitimate Section 31 to be done properly. Chad the Romulan. Exactly. Yes, I don't know what was going on with this person's costuming, but the Federation defector was like the least convincing person I've ever seen on television trying to be a spy. Troi really steps up and takes charge of the situation and sheds the whole babe counselor thing. She was real. Yes, yes, yes. She had real agency, yes. And she really comes into her own. I really love her in this episode. Yes, this episode is very good and is more exciting than the Cardassian episode. Okay, interesting. Patty says, a shocking scene when she wakes up as a Romulan. Marina really shows her acting chops. I love this episode. Yeah, that scene is like, that burns into my mind about this episode, just without having all the context. But in rewatching it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like, it's just I don't know about you, but when I was watching it, I was really on the edge of my seat because I thought for sure she was going to be caught any second. Like, I always think this too. Whenever I watch the spy show, I watch a lot of like police procedurals and crime dramas, like the fake ones, like CSI type of thing. And whenever somebody is like a spy or they take over someone else's identity, or if you saw the movie from the 90s, The Net, which I love, it's a Sandra Bullock movie, where someone's like taking over someone's identity, I always wonder, how do they not get caught immediately? Because there's mannerisms you don't know. There's backstory you don't know. There's connections to people you don't know. And there just seems like so many opportunities to get caught. So while watching this episode, I was like, oh, any minute she's going to get caught. She's for sure going to get caught. And the fact that she doesn't get caught until the very end and then almost gets shot and then barely gets out was very exciting. Yeah, Troy's best episode by a mile. You might be right about that. I'm trying to think if there's any other Troi episode that's better, like objectively better, enjoyable all around. Oh, I don't think so. I did a whole top 10 best of Troi. I wonder if this was the top one, because you might be right about this. This might be her very best episode ever. Why does my phone display MILF as mile? That's funny. Wingrace says, I think I read a novel that had her dealing with the trauma of this and sometimes waking up in a cold sweat and expecting to look Romulan. Oh gosh, that's terrifying. They never have trauma in this show though. They just like move on. It was because of Jellicoe asking her to wear a uniform. She was taken seriously after that. Yeah, I know that's what Marina Sirtis has said, going on record. Like, once she got to wear a real uniform and didn't have her boobs out, they started, like, she said something to the effect of, when my boobs went away, my brains came out, or something like that. Yeah, and that was season 5. Yeah, so maybe she's not wrong. Sela says, I watched it the first run and absolutely loved Troi in this really bizarre situation. Dustin says, this might even be season 6's best episode because I love some Carolyn Seymour, who crushes every time she's on this show. She crushes. I I don't know about that, if it's the best of season 6. I'd have to look back over season 6. But I think you're right. It's definitely the best Troi episode. And it's so good. Like, I can't really find many flaws in this episode. Like, it's exciting, it's interesting, it's entertaining, it's amazing to watch Troi play this cat and mouse game. It's fun to watch the Enterprise try to catch up and figure it out. I'd be hard pressed to find a lot of things about this episode I don't like, other than the Federation defector, who just is ridiculous. Like, he looks ridiculous, he sounds ridiculous, he's totally unbelievable. But I think that's more of a casting thing than like a storyline thing. So yeah, you might be right. You would know better than me, since you actually did rank all of the episodes. Justin says, Line of Duty is a cool procedural one with Christina Chung from Strange New Worlds. Line of Duty. I have not seen Line of Duty. Yep, Seymour was great. They didn't have to turn her into a frog this episode. Was quite amphibian. Okay, now let's talk about the double take, when they did the same idea again, but this time in Deep Space Nine. Season 3, Episode 5, Second Skin. Major Kira awakens to find that she has been surgically altered to appear as a Cardassian. She's told that she actually is a Cardassian operative sent to infiltrate the Bajorans years ago, and has simply forgotten her true identity. Kira ultimately discovers that she was kidnapped by the Obsidian Order to expose her supposed father as a member of the underground dissident movement. So, I mean, this is a similar idea, right? It's the same idea. It's someone wakes up and they look in the mirror and they go, they even have the same scene. I was going to do that for the thumbnail of this video. We have a scene of Counselor Troi going in the mirror, and then there's a scene of Kira going in the mirror. It's like the same look. And I was like, oh, this is so good. But it didn't look as good as a thumbnail. But anyways, it's the same idea, but I love that they went in a different direction. This is very different from last week's conversation, which was a comparison between Voyager episode and TNG episode, where in the TNG episode, Riker was accused of murdering a guy because he had the hots for his wife. And in the Voyager episode, Paris was accused of murdering a guy because he had the hots for his wife. Those were very, very, very similar. Kind of different reasons, but very similar. In this case, we still have face swap, like we still have that. But the reasons and the background and the context are totally different, actually. This isn't a Tal Shiar spy. It's an Obsidian Order, which is fair to say, like, that's the same thing as Tal Shiar. But the difference here is that with Troi, she knew she was Counselor Troi, and someone had to come and read her in and say, like, hey, look, yes, you've been changed into someone who looks Romulan, but here's why. And there's a whole plot, and you have to play along or else we're going to die. In this case, though, in Deep Space Nine, Major Kira is being told she's not really Bajoran. She was never Bajoran. She's Cardassian. She's always been Cardassian. She just didn't know. And she was surgically altered and implanted all these false memories of her growing up in the Bajoran labor camps and stuff. And that never happened. I mean, they're totally trying to gaslight her and confuse her in order to manipulate her father into, and it has nothing to do with her, actually. The only reason they picked Kira, the only reason is because she looks a lot like Ileana, the woman she's supposed to be, which is her supposed father's, actual daughter. So they picked her because she looks like Ileana, and they probably picked her also because she's Bajoran, and that would play really well in this scenario, which is like she's being questioned, she's being interrogated by the Obsidian Order for the answers that she was supposed to go and get as this infiltrating agent. And they have to, first it's just conversations, but because her memory's not coming back with the information, they keep threatening to do more and more severe types of interrogation. So they're putting her in danger, like artificially, so that her father, whose name I'm blanking on, but whatever that guy's name is, so her father can sneak her out and get her off of Cardassia so that she can be safe. And the whole reason they did this plot was because they know he's part of the underground movement. Yet again, we have an underground movement, so that's samesies. He's part of the dissident movement who doesn't agree with what Cardassia is doing, blah, blah, blah. And he's been sneaking people out of Cardassia. He's been sneaking dissidents out. He's got some kind of underground railroad going on. And the Obsidian Order is onto him, but they have no proof. And they want to kind of, and it seems like he's the head of this underground movement, the way that they go after him and target him. Like, it seems like taking out this one person is going to completely destroy the the entire underground dissident movement, and everyone will just come into line. Sure. So they just want him to show his hand. And as soon as he tries to sneak Kira out, then they're going to be like, aha, we caught you. And now we can murder you. Because that's all they do. Like whenever they're arrested for these kinds of crimes, they're already automatically found guilty. They have a big public trial and then they execute them. And I don't even know if they were going to do the public trial in this guy's case, or if they were just going to kill him in his living room. But that was what this whole plot was about. It actually had nothing to do with Kira. She was just like a figurehead, like a placeholder. And at one point she asks, why did they even pick me? Why didn't they just find Ileana? Like, why didn't they just get your daughter to do this? Then we wouldn't have to do this whole back and forth, you know, am I Bajoran? Am I not? And all of that. Tekeni. Gamor. I think Gamor is what I was thinking. Gamor, that's his last name. So they did, thank you. So she was like, they didn't even have to do all this. Why didn't they just get Ileana? And she could have played this role. And Gamora was like, that wouldn't have worked, because had they had the real Ileana and given her these drugs to like bring back her memory would have actually come back and she would have cooperated with the Obsidian Order. And that's not what they wanted. They did not want someone who would cooperate. They didn't care about the information from this operative. They didn't care about any of that. They were just trying to expose Gamora for being this dissident. So what they needed was somebody who he had to sneak out. They needed somebody who would go against what the Obsidian Order wanted. They needed somebody who would fight against them, who their memory would not miraculously come back with this drug. Well, anywho, it's kind of hard to watch the whole episode. Everyone's trying to convince Kira that she's really Cardassian and that she's crazy. At one point, they even beam up a body that looks exactly like Kira. Where did this body come from? I don't know. I don't even remember why they did this or how they got this or whatever. But they were like, look, we have proof. And they beam up this body and they remove the sheet and it's like dead Kira laying on a slab. And they're like, see, that's not really you. You're really Ileana. And Kira's just not having any of it. She's just not buying any of it. She's like, nope, none of that is true. She's like, I don't know what that is. That's a clone or a hologram or something. But that is not me. I am me. I don't care what you say. I don't care how many years that I have to be here. I am Kira. I am Bajoran. I know my history. She does not fall for this. She even tries to escape a few times unsuccessfully. And in the end, Gamora does try to sneak her out. He is caught by the Obsidian Order, and they're like, ha ha ha, we have you now in our little web. But just then, Sisko and Garrick and Odo, shaped like a backpack, crash their way into this space. I forget if they beam in or if they walk through the front door. I don't know. But somehow they get in, and they Odo kind of transforms from a backpack and disarms the main Obsidian Order person. And they all have big weapons, like big phaser rifles. And they're like, we're getting out of here. Kira, you're with us. It's just like, they're not having it. Because this whole time, which I think is so fun too, the whole time that Kira is being brainwashed or trying to be gaslit into believing that she's Cardassian, on Deep Space Nine, someone has already reported to the station, I forget who, someone's already reported that Kira never showed up to wherever she was supposed to go. I think she was heading to Bajor. She never showed up to Bajor. So then they start investigating. Where is she? Where has she gone? What happened to her shuttle? And they start uncovering, like, wait a minute, there's some signs of Cardassian interference here. Maybe she's been kidnapped. Like, they go on full on high alert mode. And Garrick is like, this sounds like some Obsidian Order stuff right here. This sounds like stuff that I would do. Right? So he confides to Bashir, because that's his, bromance. So he confides to Bashir that, like, I know what's up. This is an Obsidian Order situation. And then Bashir convinces, or maybe doesn't convince him. Bashir just goes to Sisko and is like, Garrick knows what's up. He knows what's going on. and Garrick's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He starts playing dumb all of a sudden. And then Sisko's like, oh, really? We want to play that game. Well, let me tell you something. Either you help us get Kira back, or you can get off this station and take your chances with the Obsidian Order, knowing that Garrick has no place else to go. Right? And this is Sisko's, like, this is his move. This is Sisko's main move. It's called blackmail. That is his main move, to put Quark in line, to put Garrick in line, to put anybody he needs to put in line. He's going to blackmail him. So Garrick is like, Captain, or maybe he was a commander at this time. That's blackmail. And Sisko's like, yep. So shuttle's boarding. Let's go. Defiant's right over there. And Garrick's like, all right. But it actually comes in handy because he uses all his, like, spy trickery to get them into Cardassia without... They do get stopped, but he uses his special codes to get them past that little stoppage point. So they break in. They're able to save Kira. Kira's able to save Gamora. She's like, you're coming with us. There was another guy who was working in the Underground Railroad that was working with Gamora. And main Obsidian Order guy shot that guy. So, like, showed he was serious. So that guy wasn't able to be saved. But at least Gamora was saved. Kira was saved. and they walked out with their phaser rifles, like, you guys stay there, we're gonna go this way, and we're gonna just part, right? But then the Obsidian Order guy, whose name I also forget, tried to pull a phaser on Garrick after trying to like clown him, try to threaten him, being like, yeah, you know, the Obsidian Order was fine with you staying on the space station as long as you stayed in your little corner, in your little box. You didn't say anything, you didn't do anything, we were fine letting you stay. But now you're interfering with our business. So now we're gonna come for you. He's saying all this stuff. He's saying all these threats. Halfway through these threats, Garrick is like, whatever, and he's walking away. He doesn't care. But then the guy pulls a phaser, and somehow Garrick hears it. He hears phaser pulling sound. I don't know. But he turns and he blows the guy away. And he's just like, I mean, and it's Garrick, right? So he blows the guy away and he goes, shame, I really liked him. And just walks away like, this is not going to affect his day one iota. He's going to sleep perfectly fine today. He's going to have a Raktajino on the Defiant when he gets back. Like, this is all in a day's work. I should do a whole video just on Garrick. I love this character so much. He's a bad guy, but he's like such a good bad guy. Anyways, so that's taken care of. They get on the Defiant. They go back home. Bashir unsurgically alters Kira, and also proves that Kira is in fact Bajoran, has always been Bajoran, and this was just some big game that she was getting sucked into. And by this point though, she's gotten really close to Gamora. Like I don't know about like the fatherly daughter stuff. Like, I don't know if it's like totally that close as like a real father-daughter relationship would be, but it's, you know, close enough. I'm actually thinking of that episode. It's called, I think it's Preemptive Strike. The last episode we see Ensign Ro in, Lieutenant Ro in TNG. And there's like a guy in that episode who's the head of the Maquis on the planet that they're investigating. And he's like, was friends with her father, and then like have Hasperat together. And, you know, it's kind of like that kind of thing where it's like this vicarious father-daughter thing that happens really quickly. And it's really, really sweet. And that ended in tragedy. This also ended in tragedy, but at least he wasn't shot right in front of her. And so she's like, stay on the station, you know, like hang out. And he's like, who do I look like, Garrick? He's like, no, I'm not staying on this station. So some other planet or something, moon, I don't know, granted him like refugee status. So he was able to go to this other place and somehow be protected from the Obsidian Order. I'm guessing they don't care because he can't continue to do his underground movement stuff from not Cardassia, because the whole thing was he was sneaking people off the planet. So I guess they're fine with him being alive and no one's going to come after him. So good for him. And they just kind of like part as friends. And Kira's like, I really hope you find your daughter. I'm sure she's really proud of you and like really loves you and stuff like that. And he had given her this bracelet that used to belong to his wife, who has passed away. And she was like, you should take this bracelet back so you can give it to your actual daughter. And he's like, no, I want you to keep it because as far as I'm concerned, you are my daughter and you're the closest thing I'll ever get to my daughter. Like, I believe Eliana's alive. I hope she's alive. I hope I'll see her again one day. But in the meantime, like, you are my daughter, which is just really sweet. Again, like, you know, just really sweet. And that's kind of the end of the episode. So it's a very different feel throughout the episode, right? Because one's more like heart pounding, like, oh my gosh, Troy's gonna get caught and she's gonna get spaced. The other one's kind of like just really upsetting, you know, seeing Kira being told, you're Cardassian. You don't remember you're Cardassian, just for like a whole hour, you know, of seeing her trying to get brainwashed or whatever. But I think the relationship between her and her dad, her quote unquote dad, is really sweet. And they both end kind of sad because in the one with Troi, we see what's his face, the Romulan dude whose name I don't remember. We see, what was it, Navek or something? We see him get brutally murdered on the bridge. And then here we see, you know, kind of Gamora and Kira parting as friends and also having gone through this kind of traumatic moment together. Anyways, so what are your thoughts on this episode? Did you like this episode? Do you remember the first time you saw this episode? I remember the first time I saw this episode because it was a few months ago. But do you remember seeing this episode? Does this stick in your mind? Does this stick in your mind the same way that the Troi episode sticks in people's minds? Let me know. I'm going to check the chat and then we're going to go through the categories to rank which of these episodes was better. And we've got 3 categories to talk about. But before we get there, I just want to check in with the chat and see if there's anything here that I missed. Okay. So, okay, here we go. Nana Visitor did not have a good time doing this episode. She's claustrophobic, and the deep Cardassian prosthetic makeup made her feel closed in. She walked off set at one point. So that's just some little background information. I will say that the prosthetics are always like they're always the thing that does people in. I just think they're awful. Like they look awesome. They look so good, right? But I think wearing them is really bad. Some actors are allergic to some of the things in the prosthetic makeup. Some actors just are claustrophobic. Some actors, in fact, I was watching this behind the scenes thing with the actor who plays Ducat. And there was that scene when Kira and Ducat were outside in the desert and they were like looking at a Bajoran gravesite or whatever. And he was saying in that scene, because the hot sun was blazing, he was like sweating underneath the prosthetics. But because the sweat was trickling underneath, it felt like ants crawling all over his skin. And it's just like, I just think the prosthetics, it's hard. I think it's really hard. The fact that Michael Dorn, the actor who plays Worf, wore prosthetics for like 50 million years is really impressive. He wore it for all of TNG. He wore it for half of DS9. He wore it in the movies. He wore it in Picard, for the few episodes he was in, like the 2 episodes or whatever. And that was just the face thing. The actor who played Quark had to do like the face, the ears, the whole back, the whole cowl, like the whole head. And then the Cardassians are doing like the head and the neck, and they have the shoulder pads, and their outfits are actually gigantic. And yeah, I couldn't do it. But I believe it. It's amazing. Yeah, it speaks to how great of an actor she is. It speaks to how great of an actor they all are, where you can't tell how uncomfortable they are in these prosthetics because you're just seeing them acting. Like you're just seeing that character doing what they're supposed to do. It's amazing. Karen says, I love how Kira figures it out. I also love that despite all that's happened between the Cardassians and the Bajorans, they created a father-daughter bond. Yeah, me too. So Kira's the one who figures out, aha, this was all some big trap for Gamora. She's the one who figures out. Gamora doesn't figure it out, even though he's supposed to be like some high smart guy in the government or whatever he's doing. She's the one who's like, wait, this is now making more sense. And so she's instrumental in saving his life. And I also love that they have this father-daughter bond. I cannot imagine being Kira in the situation, hating Cardassians, hating everything about Cardassians your entire life because they oppress your people. They are like, sexually assaulting your mother every night. They're just all these crazy things that she has seen and experienced. She's liberating people from camps and finding the survivors and everything she's seen. And then to be turned into a Cardassian. Like, talk about self-loathing. That alone has got to be traumatic, just to see yourself with that skin. But that she was able to find a bond with Gamora was really amazing and really sweet. Like, kind of unbelievable, but also really sweet. Wingray says, this is another story where they claim behind the scenes the original idea was for this to be true and that she was actually a Cardassian. I find it hard to believe that would ever actually have flown. Yeah, I probably would have revolted. I would have rebelled if they were just like, psych, Kira's not really Bajoran. She's really Cardassian. She was Cardassian all along. And they try to do that for, let's see, this is season 3. So they try to do that for the next 4 seasons. I don't think I would have watched. I don't know if I would have kept watching. Would you have kept watching? I don't know if I would have kept watching. Dustin says they would have been writing this about the same time as Voyager season 1. So they would have known they were going to do this with Seska. And maybe they were setting this up as like a normal thing. That's interesting. That's an interesting idea. I guess it's kind of like a triple take, because they did do this with Seska, but obviously it was different because Seska we thought she was one thing the whole time, and then she was another thing, and it was kind of more of a long-term plan than like a one-off kidnapped kind of a situation. But that's an interesting thought, though. I have to think about that. Yes. So Karen says Gamora later returned to season 5, Ties of Blood and Water, where he revealed that he was dying. Yes, he did. So if you have not seen Deep Space Nine or haven't seen it in a while, Gamora does come back. We do get a Where Are They Now? And then we do that episode, though. I have to say, Karen was not my favorite. I did not like that episode. It was slow. It was boring. It was sad. And it just felt like it didn't go anywhere. And I wasn't totally sure the point. I think the point was to show Kira having mixed emotions about father figures. I think that was the big idea. But the way it was executed, I just didn't love it. I just didn't love it. But we do see what happens to him. He does come back. And we also get backstory about what happened with Kira and her biological father while she was fighting the Cardassians. Sela says Kira was way too strong to fall for it. I feel like a lot of people could have fallen for it, especially when you see your own dead body. Like, that's pretty convincing. But you have to kind of decide, right? You have to decide how stubborn you're going to be. Either you're like, I believe this. They have lied to me. You know, I've been lied to my whole life. Like, I'm really this person. Or you're just like, no, I will not believe this. It's kind of like when people come from the future, you know, like on this show or any sci-fi show, and they're like, I'm from the future. And then people immediately believe them. I'm always like, why would you believe that? Why would anyone believe that? You have to have so much proof to convince me you're actually from the future. And then you add on the layer of like, I'm you from the future. Man, if you don't get out of here with that, like, I don't know what it would take to convince me of that, but it would take quite a lot. So I kind of feel like that in this situation where they're like, you're Cardassian. You've always been Cardassian. You're either the kind of person who's going to be like, oh my gosh, I am. You're right. There's so much evidence you're showing me. Or you're the kind of person who's like, I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. I am not Cardassian, and I will never believe that. There's kind of like two roads here. And yeah, Kira's way too, we could say strong. I would also say stubborn to ever fall for that. I think years and years down the road, she'd still be like, no, I know who I am. Yeah, me too. I love that they built that father-daughter bond. It was really sweet. Justin says, these are two of my favorite episodes, and they remind me of Nemesis in Voyager, where Chakotay is taken. I really enjoyed that from Voyager. Ooh, that one was so good. Just like, maybe I could do a whole episode of just brainwashing episodes. Although I don't think there's that many of them, actually. Dustin says, if you don't give a like or subscribe, the Obsidian Order will pay you a visit in the middle of the night. So like and subscribe. Or even give a hype. I haven't gotten a hype yet. So yeah, if you know how to do a hype, give a hype. Oh no. Can you give a hype to live streams? I don't even know if you can do that. Yeah, there are four lights kind of gaslighting. Exactly. This was similar to the Enterprise episode where Hoshi and that alien that had her stay in his house. I'm gonna take your word for it. I have not yet seen Enterprise. I have been going through TOS, but I have not. After I finish TOS, then it will be Enterprise. Probably by then, Academy will be out. So then I'll do Academy. And what other Star Trek things haven't I seen? I haven't seen all the movies. So I got to see all the old movies, all the TOS movies. I haven't seen any of those. I thought I saw all of them, but I guess I saw pieces of many of them. I haven't seen any of all of, like a full one of any of them, except for maybe Generations, but that's only because TNG was like mixed in there. But I don't remember what happened. Sela says, from the first time I saw Kirk surgically altered to look like a Romulan, I've been fascinated with the crew being transformed into different races. Ooh, I haven't seen that one yet. I'm back. I didn't know I had a twin. EAE says, I'm team TNG, but DS9 is great also. TNG is so good. All right, see you later, Nadia. PS2 Chipper says, I saw the trailer for Starfleet Academy. Even Robert Picardo looked disappointed. Oh, that's not a good sign. Ooh, look. Hype. You can hype them. That's neat. Oh my gosh. Oh, yes. I also have not watched. Yes, you're right. I have not watched Star Trek, the animated series. I just didn't count that. I just didn't count that. Honestly, I just forgot that existed and I had no plans to ever watch that. EAE says, pro tip, you can literally buy the entire Star Trek Enterprise series digitally via Fandango, formerly known as Vudu, via the disc to digital scan program. Nice. I also have Paramount Plus, so I can watch it on that because I think all the Star Treks are on there except for Prodigy. Okay, so now let's go to the categories for these three different episodes. And okay, Star Trek. There's also something in the comments where PS2 Chipper says TS is valid beta canon. Okay. I know there's a lot of weird stuff that happens in TS, but they kind of I know a lot of stuff in Lower Decks tries to tie it together because Lower Decks is amazing. Okay, so here's the three categories for these two episodes. The first category is atmosphere. So that's the set deck and that's the alien makeup. So how good were those two things? The second category is about character development. How were the characters changed in any way? And then the third category is about plot, like the overall story and how they told it. How well was that done? So let's start with set deck. We do see a lot of different locations in both episodes because in the TNG episode, we get to see a lot of different parts inside of a Romulan ship. And granted, there's not much to see, right? We see a cargo bay, we see a cafeteria, we see the bridge. I mean, I don't think we see engineering or anything that might have, we didn't get a chance to see what the quantum singularity looked like where instead of a warp core or whatever. But we do get to see parts of a ship we never see. We don't really see Romulan ships. And I'm always excited when they go into an alien ship. Like, I always get so pumped. It's like, ooh, let's look through the Ferengi ship. Let's look, like, whenever they're in another ship, it's like, what's around the corner? What's the color scheme? Like, I love when they go into a Borg cube and it's all green. It's just fun, right? So we do get to see something new, meaning the inside of the Romulan ship. But it's not that exciting. It looks just like any other ship. Like, I think these are just, reused sets. They didn't do anything, to my recollection, that looked so outrageous that it really stuck out to me in my mind. It looked pretty bland, and like indistinguishable from a Starfleet vessel in my mind, from what I can remember. But we did see different places, so yay for different places. It's kind of the same thing for the DS9 episode. We see what a Cardassian home looks like, which we had, to my knowledge, had never seen before. But it kind of looks like a lot like a home. You know what I mean? Like, it's got different kinds of artwork on the walls. Like, we get to see this more like casual civilian outfit that Kira's wearing, which I love. Like, it's such a cute outfit. So we get to see something different from like their war clothes, I guess. And, we get to see different parts of the house, like the living room, the bedroom. It's not that, and we get to see the Defiant. We get to see parts of DS9. So for both of them, I don't feel wowed with the atmosphere, is what I'm saying. We do get to see things. Are the things we see that special? Not to me. However, when we look at the makeup jobs and we're comparing makeups, those are pretty spectacular. Like in our first, not in our first one, last week, when we were talking about the difference between that TNG episode and the Voyager episode, the alien makeup was more simple for the Voyager episode, but I didn't like the weird feather hat thing. So I liked the makeup more in the TNG episode, which was a little more like angular lines all over the face, very much more alien looking, less beautiful, I would say, but also less confusing. So there's pretty distinct looks, in my opinion. Here, though, the Romulans and the Cardassians are such established characters that their makeup job is already flawless. So all we're doing is making characters we know and love look like a different alien species. We're not creating like a whole new species. So this is a tie. I think Troi as a Romulan looks so epic. I think Kira as a Cardassian looks so epic, like so good, so believable. It's so cool to see them in these different looks. So I really can't pick a winner. Let me know if you have a favorite in the chat, though. So for this first category, it's just like a tie. It's a tie. It's a wash. For the second category, which is the character development, we do see that for both episodes. I would say in the TNG episode, we get to see Troi take on this whole new mannerism of being a Tal Shiar agent and what that means. We get to see her have this confidence, this assertiveness. We get to see her being rude and threatening, which we never see from Troi because that's just not her vibe. We get to see her be kind of aggressive. I would say more assertive. She's not super aggressive, but she does yell a few times and we never see her yell. So we get to see her raise her voice. We get to see her be clever and cunning, which I really love. And I feel like, even though that doesn't necessarily keep rolling over to other episodes, right? Because that, I feel like, is also part of character development. Does this character actually develop in a way that they get to keep? They get to keep moving forward that way. So I don't feel like she ever references this experience. She ever says anything about like, oh, this was, from the time when I was Tal Shiar. Like, it just never comes up again. However, her character does do important things in these last few seasons of TNG. And I feel like this is one of those important things. So there's continuing development, I guess. Whatever she's built here, this confidence she's displaying in this episode, I feel like does continue. By the way, there are 5 memberships available for the channel. Thank you, PS2 Chipper. So if you want a membership, grab one now. You can jump into the chat. If you're on your phone, you can just like go to YouTube, or if you're watching on your TV, you can go to YouTube on your phone and grab one of those memberships while they last. Now, in the case of DS9 with Kira, what development is there to be seen? They are gaslighting her, trying to convince her that she's Cardassian when she knows she's Romulan. So where is she supposed to develop, right? Mostly we just see her being really stubborn, which we've always known about her. We also, so that's nothing new. We do see that moment when she breaks down, which is from the little clip that I showed where she's like crying and she's on her father, she's on Gamora's knee and she's just like falling to pieces. And oh my gosh, like that really, like, I don't know. I get she's acting, it's all fake, but every time Kira cries, like I believe it. So when she's just like, oh, like, why am I Cardassian? Why am I here? I felt it. So I would say, if anything, we're seeing a more vulnerable side of her, a more emotional side, in the sense of like, I'm so upset, I'm so like sad and frustrated, where we normally see her as mad and frustrated. So we do get to see like another facet of her strong emotions, of her big emotions. But I can't say she's like super developed in any. I mean, I guess you could argue that she makes friends with Gamora, and that's a big movement, right? That she is making friends with a Cardassian and has like a father-daughter bond with a type of person that she has been trained to hate her entire life. So I guess that you could call growth. And we do see that a lot. I feel like in DS9, we see a lot of moments of her making friends with Cardassians, or making peace with Cardassians at the least, working together with Cardassians. So maybe we also see character development then, continuing development in that kind of work. So if we put it like that, I don't know. I would say they're both kind of a wash again, a tie. Yeah, Wingray says, this, along with Duet, helped her along the path of realizing Cardassians can be people too. I'm not sure Troi really learned anything about the Romulans as a group that much. Well, I mean, you could make the same argument about Troi and Nevek, or whatever his name was, the first in command who was helping her out, right? At the end, she was like, wow, he was the real hero. But I do feel like, to your point, I don't feel like she ever had anything against the Romulans beforehand, like not to the extent that Kira does against Cardassians, right? She was just like, Romulans are not our allies, right? But she didn't have this strong personal hatred for the Romulans for any reason, right? So in that sense, at the end, she was like, oh, this guy he was the real hero, and we have these defectors and whatever. She might have thought they're not all bad, but did she ever think they were bad in the first place? So she may have learned some things, and she didn't have as much to overcome as Kira did. So yeah, so she didn't learn as much about, so she didn't learn as much about the Romulans as far as that, but she did have a lot of growth as a person, just like in her own confidence. So yeah, I'm going to give it a tie. If you disagree, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments and how you would vote. But those two, they seem pretty even-keeled to me. Now let's talk about plot. This is our third category, which is just the overall story and how it was told. So like I said before, Troi's story, I can't find any problems with that episode. Like, it was just great from beginning to end. It's very exciting. It's very tense. It's really cool to see Troi play this cat and mouse game. I was on the edge of my seat wondering if she was going to get caught the whole time. I loved seeing the makeup job and the outfits, and I just loved all of it. Like, I have no problems with how the story was told. I think it was engaging. I think it was exciting. I think it was interesting. And and the end, when they like save her at the last second, which is such a classic Trek thing to do, it was great. It gave me exactly what I wanted. No complaints. The DS9 episode, Nadia said this earlier, where she feels like that was like the TNG episode was better, just because it was faster paced and more exciting. I will say the DS9 episode is not really fast paced. It's not really exciting. It's more, it's like a two-part experience. The first part is Kira being gaslit from beginning to end of this episode, because the whole reason she got kidnapped is because someone tried to convince her that she was at this labor camp that she was never at, and she just doesn't remember. And so she was going to Bajor to verify whether or not she was really there, because she does not remember being there. And on her way, she was kidnapped. So she's being gaslit from like moment one of this episode all the way to the end. The second part, the second experience of that episode, was Cisco et al., Cisco and crew, trying to figure out where she is and trying to rescue her, and really seeing Garrick kind of step back into his Obsidian Order role. Because at this point, this is season 3. At this point, we're still like, we think he was involved, but he hasn't really said he was involved. We're still kind of not sure exactly what he was doing in Cardassia before coming to the station. So that was really fun to see Garrett come out of his shell. If we're talking about character development, he divulged a little bit more about himself, and I think that was super interesting. So there was some movement in this episode. It wasn't boring, I would say. I think there was movement. There was a lot of things going on, but I was not on the edge of my seat. And it was just really sad to watch Kira be so upset that people were trying to lie to her and trick her. So I would say, just from like an enjoyment standpoint of the plot, I definitely enjoyed the TNG one better. From just an objective view of like which story was told better, I think I would also have to give it to TNG because of the pacing. The pacing of that episode was like very like boom, boom, boom. That's what kept it engaging. It was like action, like not action meaning high drama action, but meaning like the storyline kept shifting in a way that kept you engaged for what was going to happen next, versus DS9 was not as fast paced. Like that just wasn't the vibe. It wasn't as fast paced. So I think I'm going to give more shoulder pads. That's funny. I think I'm going to give that one to TNG. So overall, the winner is Face of the Enemy from TNG by exactly 1 point. And if I was doing points, it'd probably be less than that. It's a really small margin. I think they're both really good episodes. But I do think the TNG episode is just like a hair better, in my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, I'm going to read the comments one last time, and then we'll be done. So let's see. So if you have anything to say it now, or forever hold your peace. Really, did it? Did TAS really win an Emmy? Is this true? Can somebody fact check this? TAS won an Emmy for the best children's programming. If so, that's amazing. Wingrace says, ooh, you should do an episode on all the times our main characters get turned into another species. How many times does that happen, though? And also, would that be, how many times does that happen? Does that happen enough times to make a whole episode out of? If so, I'm totally down with that. Yes, exactly, Karen, you're right. We get a lot more development of Garrick, which I think was probably the most interesting thing about this episode. And it was the right amount of Garrick as well, because this wasn't about Garrick. So I love even how that was kind of like a sneaky like subplot. That was like a C plot of getting more revelations about who Garrick is. I think that was really fun how they did that. They just kind of like teased out little parts here and there, and he kept saying like, I'm just a simple tailor. That was really fun. Okay, so it looks like that's all. Oh gosh. Yeah. Oh, okay, you're right. The salamander episode was okay, that's fair. That's another one. Kirk got turned into a Romulan. 3 into Klingons in DS9. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And then these 2 episodes. Okay. I'm down for that. I'm down for a whole conversation on when our main characters get turned into something else. I'm totally down for that. I'm also down for when people get gaslit or brainwashed or something like that, because we have the one where Geordi was brainwashed into like killing that Klingon governor or something like that. Enterprise, I don't want to spoil. You can. I won't even know. What was Tuvix? He wasn't another species, but maybe he was. We could count that a half Talaxian, half Vulcan, but mixed together. That could count as a new species. Okay. The Discovery Klingon guy. Oh yeah, Ash. Was it Ash? Yeah, the Discovery Klingon guy. Mm-hmm. Geordi into the glowing guy with the shadow. Yeah, Geordi when he got in what was the name of that episode? Identity Crisis. When he got that like virus and he kind of turned into a glowworm. Oh, we could do that too. We could do the Barclay episode where the officers were turned into worms. Yeah, okay. There's lots. There are lots of Voyager peeps who've been Borg. Yes, that's true. We could do a whole like, have you been Borg? Have you been Borg? Sela said TAS was outstanding entertainment children's series. Amazing. Lower decks into the orange things with Data head. I don't know what that is. I don't remember the Lower Decks one. But I'm always down to rewatch Lower Decks. Okay, that sounds like a thing. Let's do that. So after we finish Double Take, I have a couple more ideas of episodes that are doing double takes. So after that, we can totally do this transformation episode. Thank you so much for coming, to everyone who came live. Thank you so much to everyone who is in the chat. And Picard kidnapped by the imposter captain. I think that's fair because the imposter made themselves look like Picard. That's fair. Okay, so on that note, I will see you all next time.